great then. So as I was saying, this is one of the greatest things of being or having World Storytelling Day, and it's that we are a hodgepodge of people coming from all over the place. Welcome everyone. I'm today's host. I'm not a gentleman from Singapore with a with a strong voice that he's always smiling, because he will be telling today. But I'm going forward in the program. World Storytelling Day. For me personally, this was the first chance to meet the people from Feast and people from other communities all over the place. So this was one of the greatest memories that I have of 2020, which, in spite of everything that happened, allowed us to, even if we lost the opportunity to see each other face to face, we found the opportunity of meeting through this way, which, well, it allows us, if we aren't, hopping onto a plane or driving long hours, to meet each other. So welcome everyone. I can see that we have people here from India, from Singapore, from Australia, from Canada, from Italy, from, I'm probably losing someone, from Oshima from Japan. And let me know if you're coming from some other place and write it down. And well, here from Argentina, it's Monday morning over here, so good morning, everyone. That's why I was, it's and not so early morning, but a little bit early today, because I went to sleep last night really, really late. So I'm just carrying on celebrations from Sunday evening with this. And not to take more time of you, what we're going to do today is having 7 wonderful tellers, well, actually 8 wonderful tellers, share stories in 7 moments in time today. And we are going to start with a guest from India. She is part of our institutional members of Feast, but she's also part of the Mumbai storytellers. Now, I'm not going to introduce the stories, just not to spoil anything there, because I'm a big mouth. I tell a lot, so I won't do that. I won't do that to you or to anyone over there. So anyway, welcome, Usha. Welcome to this World Storytelling Day, and tell us your story related to Lost and Found.
Thank you, Annabelle, and good evening to everybody, and good day to some of you. Have you ever had a wound, a little bruise, a cut, a scab that you simply cannot look away from? The way it changes color, purples, reds, and greens. Oh, and how it itches on your skin and in your mind. Shurpanaka's mind could not stop itching either. They haunted her. This is a sad story out of pain, of hurt. This is a sad story of pain and of hurt. Don't turn away from it now, my friends. Don't close your eyes. It is in pain that Shurpanaka's story began. If asked, what do we know about Shurpanaka? I'm sure most of us would be rendered speechless, except a few fistful of us who have tried to delve into her life. And don't you think it's time now for us to know a little more about Ravana's sister, Shurpanaka? Machiavellian? Was Shurpanaka the arrow that set in motion the chain of events leading directly to the destruction of Ravana? Was she the evil genius? Think about it. There is always another side to the story. 2 sides to a coin. Shurpanaka is one of the most important characters in the great epic Ramayana. Valmiki the bard comes close to claiming that if there had been no Kaikeyi and no Shurpanaka, then there would have been no Ramayana. Her story, the story only she knows as in N-O-S-E. The youngest child of Rishi Vishrava and his second wife Kaikesi, Shurpanaka was given the name of Minakshi at birth, meaning one with beautiful fish-shaped eyes. As Shurpanaka grew up to be a beautiful young woman of unsurpassing beauty, she chose to marry a man of her choice. She married Dushtabuddhi, the prince of Kalkeya Danava clan. After marriage, Shurpanaka lived in Jambudweep with Dushtabuddhi and loved her husband to no end. Her married life was blissful and happy. She used to adorn herself with her shringar, wearing her ornaments, kohl in her eyes, and kasturi in the parting of her hair. Dushtabuddhi was not only good looking, but also a very learned and skilled man. They had a son together whom they named Shambri. Now, the marital idyll did not last very long. Dushtabuddhi, who was a minister in Ravana's court, was very intelligent. Ravana saw him as a threat and competition and had him killed. This sent Shurpanaka over the edge. Grief stricken at losing her husband to her own brother Ravana, Shurpanaka was vulnerable, powerless, defenseless. She looked at her slain husband, and the fire raging on the pyre of her husband became the fire of revenge inside her. Revenge consumed her, and her diabolic plan to bring down her brother took shape, and she fled towards South India, northwards to the dreaded dense jungles of southern India called the Dandakaranya forest. Now, people were terrified of Dandakaranya, and Shurpanaka became the queen of the Dandakaranya forest. She became a walking volcano, a stormy sea of grief. Revenge was her motto. She had an agenda to meet the scion of the Ikshvaku clan, Prince Rama. It needed someone with divine powers to kill her brother. Rama walked into the forest resplendent like 1,000 suns. Flowers blossomed in front of him. Predatory animals became very calm and licked his face. The trees and the flowers experienced a second spring. Shurpanaka knew Prince Rama would be the perfect match for the might of her brother Ravana, and it was her idea to pitch the two in a battle. Shurpanaka knew about Ravana's weakness for beautiful women. Why did she choose Rama? Rama had killed both her grandmother, the ferocious Tataka, and her uncle, Subahu. Everyone was terrified. All the demons were terrified. Accordingly, she encountered or orchestrated the encounter with Rama in Panchavati, the kidnapping of Sita by the 10-headed demon Ravana, and the resulting war between Ravana and Rama, all with the sole intention of having her brother killed. And rest, as we know, is the epic Ramayana. Now, friends, I invite you to take a pause, fast forward to a time when Sita met Shurpanaka in Valmiki's ashram. Valmiki's ashram looked beautiful in the forest and tranquil, like a picturesque landscape. It was evening time. Picture this, herds of deer were getting ready for a moonlight excursion, shedding their daytime lethargy. Under the berry tree, Sita found Shurpanaka full of bitterness, simmering with rage. Her anger had not abated. Sita smiled and offered Shurpanaka a berry. These are really sweet, as sweet as the berries in Mandodari's garden. Shurpanaka was surprised, and Sita continued, "Oh, Shurpanaka, what happens to wounds? Time has passed. Do you want it to heal or want it to fester? Why trap yourself in your own victimhood? Come listen to a story." And Sita, in her strong, sweet voice, began to speak. Sita had aged quite a bit. Once upon a time, so long ago that I can remember, there lived two brothers. One was called Sorrow, the other was called Grief. Now, the two brothers, they were woeful and sad, and they went slowly and heavily about their work. And because they never looked up, they never saw through the shadows to the tops of the hills. And at the top of those hills, there lived two sisters, Joy and Delight. They were bright and sunny, and their days were full of happiness. The only shadow was their sense that something was amiss. They didn't know what, but they felt they couldn't fully enjoy their happiness. Shurpanaka nodded, and Sita continued, I think you can guess what happened next. One day, the brothers and sisters met. Sorrow fell instantly in love with Delight, and she with him. It was the same for Grief and Joy. Each couldn't live without the other. After their double wedding and great celebration, the two couples moved into neighboring houses, halfway up and halfway down the hill. They all lived to be very old. When time came to die, Grief and Joy did so on the same day, as did Sorrow and Delight. This is a good story, said Shurpanaka. Oh, yes, Shurpanaka, Sita continued. It is the same with life and death. What would life be worth if there were no death? Who would enjoy the sun if it never rained? Who would yearn for day if there were no night? And a gentle breeze was blowing in the garden, and Sita continued quietly, Cry heart, O dear Shurpanaka, but never break. Let your tears of grief and sadness help begin a new life. Shurpanaka picked up the berry offered by Sita. It was indeed sweeter, sweeter than any lover's impatient, lustful gaze. She ate another berry and smiled. Now I'll race you to the river, shouted Shurpanaka as she ran for the stream. Shurpanaka giggled as she jumped into the waters. Once again, she felt beautiful. Meenakshi, the beautiful fish-shaped eyes. Shurpanaka set herself free. Thank you.
Thank you, Shah. What a beautiful story that you have shared with us. And I'm thinking of how many times we lose sense and, losing, well, anyway, losing not only your nose, but the sense of what goes on around it. So one of the things that I love the most also is your voice. You have a very soothing voice. So what a great way to open up this World Storytelling Day, don't you think, friends? So thank you again for this sharing. And I must confess that every time I hear a story about Rama and Sita, I learn more and more and more about the stories of India and get more and more entangled and fascinated. But now we're going to jump ahead and fly to Spain and to Palestine. We're having Rebecca Lemaire and we're having Hind Hattak from Palestine, which, as Roger was saying earlier, you are the first guest from Palestine that is telling at a feast. So welcome. They are going to bring us a tandem storytelling session with music, well, session story actually. And I'm not going to say anything about this story because I think that when you will start and when you will be telling this, all of us will be able to share and to recognize many motives, and I think you'll guess what they are going to tell us before I even finish speaking. So anyway, I'll shut up again and leave you the screen. So welcome again, Rebecca and Hind.
Thank you, Annabelle. Just a little thing before we start, because I see it says musical tandem, and actually we realised that our story is like 15 minutes long. So we've cut loads, and for the music we've got almost nothing left, just short little sentences. So sorry about that, but yeah, another time you can hear the complete version.
كان يا مكان في قديم الزمان وما يحلى الحكي إلا بذكر النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام.
Long ago, there was a king and a queen, and they just had one daughter, and they seemed happy until one day the queen died. After the acceptable mourning period in Palestine, the king, he decided he wanted to marry again. But in his eyes, no one was as beautiful as his dead wife, except for his daughter, who was becoming a young woman.
نعم، بنته الوحيدة اللي من لحم ودمه. ضلت الفكرة معششة في مخه، ما بده يتزوج حدا تاني غير بنته، وراح جاب لها فستان عرس وأساور ذهب عشان يستعد يتزوجها.
And so the next morning, he gave his daughter that wedding dress that he had made for her, the gold bracelets, the jewelry. You shall wear these tonight, he said. But you're my father, she pleaded. No longer now, he said. Call me Ibn Ami, husband, and do as you're told.
الأميرة المسكينة صارت متأكدة إنه أبوها ناوي يتزوجها، ومش عارفة صارت شو تعمل. مولاي إني ببابك قد بسطت يدي. ضلتها تدعي كتير، وهي بتدعي اجتها فكرة.
So she had an idea. She was praying, and she sent her young servant to go and get some sackcloth, a coarse material made of goat's hair. And when the servant came back with the material, in secret, she started sewing herself a suit made out of that sackcloth, a suit that would cover her whole entire body, except for her mouth, her nostrils, and her eyes. She took every moment of the day when her father wasn't watching to sew that suit. By the evening, it was done. She hid it by one of the back doors of the palace. And soon she heard her father telling her to get ready.
وتلبس فستان العرس والأساور الذهب.
And dressed in the wedding dress and the jewelry, she pushed open the door of the bridal chambers. There was her father waiting for her. I have to go to the outhouse, she suddenly said. The toilets, even in palaces, were outside in the past.
وشو يضمني إنك ما تهربي مني؟
No, I won't escape, she said, but if it can reassure you, look, I've got this very long string, and you can tie one end to my wrist, and you can hold the other end, and when you tug, you'll know I'm here.
وهيك الأبو عمل.
So she walked down the steps of the palace. Her father would tug at the string now and again, and he would hear the tinkle of her bracelets. She walked out through the back door. She took that sackcloth suit that she had been making herself, and outside she quickly tied her side of the string to a big stone together with the bracelets. She took her dress off and she changed into the sackcloth suit. She was scared. She ventured into the night. She managed to get out of the walls of the city. She went through the town, walking against the houses, and she walked as fast as she could.
في هذا الوقت كان الأب بيستناها بغرفة النوم الملكية، وعشان يطمن أكتر ضلوا يهز الحبل يمين وشمال يسمع صوت الأساور ويطمن إنه لساتها موجودة في بيت الخارج. ضلوا يستنى ويستنى.
But eventually, even though he could hear the tinkle of the bracelets, he grew suspicious. So he got out of bed, he put his robe on, he went down the steps, he walked out through the back door, and there he found the other side of the string tied to that big stone.
انصدم الأب، صار مش عارف إيش يعمل، يطلع حواليه وقرر بالآخر إنه يروح يدور عليها. لبس ناس عاديين، طلع فوق الحصان وطار عشان يدور على بنته.
But she had already left the walls of the city. And at dawn, he finally caught up with her. She was in the groves and the fields. She recognized him immediately despite his disguise as a mere commoner on his horse. He didn't recognize her, and she clung to a tree, and looking at this strange creature, he said, "Uncle, have you seen a young woman passing by?"
شفتها رايحة من هذا الاتجاه.
And sending him one way, she went the other. She walked for some days. She ate what she could. She slept here and there.
صارت تاكل ورق الشجر وتحاول قد ما تقدر إنه تتخبى من الناس عشان ما حدا يشوفها.
And after some days, exhausted, alone, hungry, she entered another city. She found the walls of the king's palace, and she crouched by a little door which she guessed gave to the royal kitchens, hoping for some scraps of food. And soon a young servant did come out and threw some leftovers out.
ما صدقتش عينها وأخيرا بدها تاكل أكل عادي. صارت هجمت على بواقي الأكل وصارت تاكل بشراهة.
The young servant, seeing her eating like this, she ran back into the kitchens and she said to the head cook, "There's this strangest creature outside eating our leftovers like an animal."
رئيس الطباخين قالت للخدامة روحي نادي لنا إياه نشوفه. راحت الخدامة قالت له تعال ستي بدها إياك، تعال فوت لجوا.
So when the young princess was standing there in her sackcloth suit in the kitchens, the head cook looked at her and she said, "What's the deal with you, uncle? Are you a genie? Are you something else? Or are you human?"
يا جماعة الخير، أنا بني آدم زيكم، بس هيك الله خلقني، شو بعمل بحالي يعني؟ الله يخليكم خلوني عندكم بس هاي أنا ما بعرف أعمل شيء غير إني أقشر بطاطا وبصل، ممكن أناولكم أغراض، خلوني عندكم.
And being assured that at least it was human, the head cook accepted to keep her in the kitchens, doing whatever chores she could despite this sackcloth suit that was hindering every movement. And soon people grew to love this strange creature who was joyful and kind, and they nicknamed her Uncle Sackcloth.
أبو اللبابيد. راح أبو اللبابيد وإجا أبو اللبابيد.
And Abu Lababid, Uncle Sackcloth, eventually became friends with the seamstress too, who had her workshop there in the servants' quarters. And she would take some little scraps of material and she started to sew herself some beautiful dresses in secret. She dreamt that one day she could wear them, that she could be a princess once again.
وفي يوم من هالأيام إجا هالمرسول لقصر الملك بيدعي الكل على عرس كتير كبير في المدينة. الكل كان كتير متحمس بده يروح على العرس ويتفرج عليه.
Yes! A wedding, and everybody was invited, including the servants. And on the first day of the celebrations, the servants all ready to go, they looked at Uncle Sackcloth and they said, "Abu Lababid, are you coming?"
لا أنا مش رايح معكم، لا روحوا أنتم بس السلامة.
And when everyone had left, she quickly got one of those beautiful dresses that she had been sewing for herself. She changed into the dress. She was resplendent. She slipped out of the empty palace and she went and found the place where the women were celebrating.
وهناك في الحفلة لبست هالفستان وراحت ترقص، رقصت عن كل عمرها وتغني. ميلي 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 يا شجرة السريس، ميلي ميلي يا حاملي سريس، ميلي ميلي يا محمد هالعريس، ميلي ميلي ميت اسم الله عليك.
And having danced her soul, she suddenly quickly slipped out, made her way back to the palace, back to the kitchens, got dressed back into her sackcloth suit and went to sleep by the fireplace where she always slept. When the servants got back late at night, they woke her up immediately.
آخ يا أبو اللبابيد لو إنك إجيت معنا راح عليك هالعرس.
That wonderful woman, she could only have been a princess, so beautiful, so noble, but nobody knows who she is and who she was. You should have seen her, they said. The next evening on the second day of the celebrations, the same thing happened.
وزي ما عملت الليلة اللي فاتت اللي عملت كمان في ليلة الحنة، لبست على العرس وقعدت ترقص وتغني وضوت المكان برقصتها وجمالها.
ميلي ميلي يا شجرة السريز، ميلي ميلي يا حملي السريز، ميلي ميلي يا محمد هالعريس. Well,
كانت في كل مرة بنص الحفلة تختفي وبتمشي.
And so she became the talk of the palace. This mysterious woman, she even reached, the story of her reached the ears of the young prince.
لمعت عينه الأمير وصار بده يعرف مين هاي البنت.
But to meet her, he had to go to the women's celebration, but he was a man, so he couldn't. And so, with the help of his mother, he dressed up as a woman and he joined the celebration of the women that night.
وهناك في الحفلة صار صديق. أبو اللبابيز الأميرة المتخفية، وصاروا يتحدثوا وانبسطوا مع بعض كتير كتير. نص الحفلة بس وهو بيحكي معها دار وشه على جنب شوية. في هذا الوقت كانت الأميرة المتخفية هربت وشردت.
With his heart in the firm grip of love, the young prince wondered how he was going to meet her again. She had disappeared once again. And so, on the fourth evening, he didn't join the men, he didn't join the women. He went and hid at the exit of the celebration of the women, and he waited. And then the mysterious young princess left the party. He followed her back to his palace, back to the servants' quarters, back to the kitchen. And so he discovered, what? Uncle Sackcloth?
أبو اللبابيد.
So the next morning, the young prince, he declared to the servants that he would have his food served to him by no one except for by Uncle Sackcloth.
وبناء على طلب من الأمير، رئيس الطباخين قالت لأبو اللبابيد أنت اللي حتقدم الأكل للأمير من هان ورايح. الله يخليك، أنا ما بعرف أعمل إشي ولا بعرف أعمل أي حاجة، الله يخليك اعفيني من هاي المهمة، ما بقدر.
I can't do anything about it, said the head cook. This is the orders of the young prince. You're just going to have to do it. So the servants, they prepared the food, they put it on a tray for Uncle Sackcloth, and they said, go. And so Uncle Sackcloth started walking up the steps. She was limping more than usual, and when she got halfway up, she pretended to slip and the whole tray tumbled down the stairs. And alerted by the noise, the young prince, he came out of his chambers, he stood up there at the top of the steps and he said, Abu Lababid, well, you're just going to have to do it again and again, as many trays as are needed until you get to the top. And up and down she went. She finally got to the top. Both of them were secretly laughing.
وقالها الأمير تعالي كلي معايا، تعالي أبو لبيد كل معايا، بس انت طلع على شكلي أنا منظري بقرف، حتقرف تاكل معي، الله يخليك اعفيني.
No way, I can't eat with you, she said, look at me. And she was leaving the room when he suddenly said to her, I know who you are, or rather, who you're not. She stopped, she looked at him. Come, he said, please tell me, who are you? And so there, sitting with the prince, she told him her whole story from the beginning, her eyes lowered, and she told him why she was wearing this sackcloth suit. And he told her his little secret from the wedding.
إنه هو كان صديقها اللي بالحفلة. أنت؟ ردت الأميرة.
You were my friend at the wedding? She asked.
أنا، رد الأمير.
And so sitting there, looking at the prince, and feeling this itchy, uncomfortable sackcloth suit against her skin, she said to him, you know, I'm ready to take this off.
يلا شيلي كيس هاللباد عنك وكوني انت زي ما انت.
Yeah, be yourself, said the prince.
كوني حرة.
Be free. And so together, with the help of his knife, they ripped through that sackcloth and removed it.
ميلي ميلي يا شجرة السريس، ميلي ميلي يا حاملي سريس، ميلي ميلي يا محمد هالعريس، ميلي ميلي ميت اسم الله عليك. Thank you.
Bravo, bravo. I have to say it in Spanish. So this has been a wonderful rendition of a classical or not so classical story, and bilingual in Arabic and in English. So shukran, Hen. And thank you, Rebecca. I'm saying it in English, but actually, gracias, Rebecca. And how long have you been working together, preparing this story, or have you been telling other stories together?
Yeah, we've got a much more fun Joha session And yeah, we've been working together for about a couple of years now. We both volunteer for the Hands Up project, working with kids in Palestine, and we met like that. And yeah, we'll put the information in the chat. Thank you for asking.
Please do, and thank you again for joining us. And Hind, well, Rebecca, of course, you're invited to feast again. But Hind, remember that this is the Federation of Asia Storytellers, so please join us.
Of course.
and let's hope that we can hear more from your stories. So and well, people here are saying wonderful things here at the chat, so thank you again. And for next story, we are bringing Nidhi Gujral, and we are not exactly going to the lands of Palestine or the lands of Spain, although over there are some desertic places, and Nidhi is also going to take us to the desert. I'm not sure which desert, but that I will let you tell us. So welcome, Nidhi, and please bring us your lost and found story for this World Storytelling Day Story Swap. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Annabelle. So I'll jump right into the story. Once, a caravan of traders was crossing the country to sell their goods. Along the way, they came to an edge of a desert, which was so hot during the day that you could even fry an egg or even popcorn on it during the day. So it obviously wasn't possible for anyone to cross that desert unless the sand cooled down. So the only way was to cross it in the evening. The leader of the caravan, Mustafa, decided to hire a guide who would help them cross that desert. So the supplies were purchased and the guide was hired, and they began their journey. The journey was going very comfortably. During the day, at the hottest hour of the day, they would pitch their tents under the cool shade of the palm trees. And in the evenings, they would finish up with their meals, and as soon as the sand cooled down, they would begin their journey. And the guide would drive the first cart, and every evening, he would sit in the cart and look up into the sky to gauge the position of the stars. And with that, he would determine at which point in the desert were they and which direction they should take. He would guide the camels every day, and the rest of the caravan followed. And that's how they were going for a few days. One evening, as they had just begun the journey, and as usual, the guide was looking up into the sky at the position of the stars, he realized that they were almost at the end of their destination, and they would reach probably the following morning. He was very excited and very pleased with himself that he had finally managed to successfully complete that journey. And he announced it to the whole caravan. Everyone was extremely relaxed, and so was the guide. He sat back in the cart after directing the camel, and he gazed up into the sky. He didn't realize when he fell off to sleep. Now, without any directions, the camel gradually changed its direction and started going in a big circle to end up in the same spot where they had started the previous night. In the morning, as the sun came up, the caravan stopped, and the people realized that it was the same spot where they had camped the previous day. They were confused, but more than that, they were furious. And even more than that, they were panicking because by now they had expected to complete their journey and they were running out of supplies. There was no food and no water left. Everyone was furious and they were all shouting and blaming the guide. You, because of you, your negligence, we are stuck in this situation and we are all going to die. What do we do without water? Where are we going to find water in this God-forsaken, hot, torrid desert? And in the middle of all of that chaos and commotion, Mustafa stepped away from the caravan to clear his mind. He thought it was best for him to keep his cool and not jump into the blame game. He thought if he lost the courage, it was a lost battle. They would have to give up without a fair fight. And that wouldn't be fair to anyone. And so he began walking, wondering, and trying to think of a solution, how to get out of the situation. He looked around him, but everywhere for miles and miles, there was only dry sand and sand dunes dotted here and there with a few thorny bushes. With the sun blazing down, there was not even a single bird in the sky. With his feet burning and his throat parched, he turned around hopelessly to get back to his caravan. When suddenly, as he turned, he spotted something shining at a distance. He went in closer to have a better look, and what he saw made his jaw drop, and the corners of his eyes crinkled up. He was filled with hope. What was growing was a patch of fresh green grass. Mustafa was so excited. Huffing and puffing and panting, he went straight back to the caravan, and in the middle of all of that commotion, he said, "Stop! I found hope. We can't give up now. Let's all go there." And so everyone headed to that patch. And Mustafa knew if that grass was growing in the hot desert, there had to be a source of water. And so he directed some people to start digging that patch. They began digging, and they dug and they dug and they dug for a very long time, till they struck a heavy rock. And that was the end of their hope. They dropped their shovels and sat down and said, "This is useless. Why are we even wasting our time? There is no hope left. We should just give up. What are we doing? Are we trying to kill ourselves before the thirst kills us? This is it. We should just accept that this is the end of our time. This is the last day we're going to live." Just then, Mustafa jumped in and said, "No, no, no. We can't give up hope now. We've done so much. We should hang on. I'm confident we'll find something." And saying so, he jumped into that hole. And he looked around frantically, trying to find something to back himself up. And something told him to put his ear on that stone. And as he did that, he heard a sound that made him smile. I know, you all guessed it. It was the sound of the water gurgling under it. Once again, Mustafa was filled with hope. He looked around at all the crowd of the people who were standing right above him, surrounding the hole. And he picked up the heaviest hammer. And he called out to the strongest, burliest man in the group, and he said, "This is your chance to save us and to save yourself." And he gave him the hammer and he said, "Will you please help us? Take this hammer and strike this rock, the strongest that you can." The man took the hammer, and with one mighty blow, he struck that rock. To everyone's disbelief and amazement, the rock split into two, and out gushed a mighty flow of water and flooded that entire hole. People stared at in disbelief, and they were all overjoyed. They drank the water as to their heart's content, and they filled up their pouches. They bathed and they cleaned, and they were happy and hopeful once again. And they began their journey once again, but before leaving this time, they raised a high banner for any lost traveler who was looking for hope in that desert. Thank you.
Thank you, Nidhi, for this beautiful story. And is it a story that they tell in your region, for instance, in Kolkata, or have you heard it from other travelers, perhaps?
Well, I actually read it somewhere. It's a folk tale from somewhere in Arabia, but I'm not really certain which part of Arabia it comes from.
Oh, well. But anyway, I think it's a very, very good example of what happens when we are getting lost. I think I was thinking while I was listening to you and your beautiful energy of the expression lost in despair and found in joy. And I think that was one of the main objectives when the people at World Storytelling Day, we were voting the theme for this year. And they were saying, okay, we have lost many things, but at the same time, we can find hope, we can find, oh, the most freshest of water. So I think you have brought us that. So thank you for that feeling and that fulfillment. And well, I
Thank you.
wish we can find that same thing. So thank you,
Oh,
Nidhi, again.
thank you.
And we're going to invite now from Italia. So we have been going around all the world. We have covered, well, we have people from all the continents right now, because since Kiran is connected, she's from Australia. So we're having the Americas, Europe, Africa. Yeah, I think there was someone from the north of Africa, and well, Asia, of course, and me from South America and Australia. We are covered. And now Italia, represented by Stefania Ganzini, who is bringing us the story of Jada or Jaida. I didn't ask you, Stefania, how to pronounce properly the story, so I apologize if I have mispronounced it. Welcome
So this
here.
is a thank you. So this is a story from Iran, and well, it's about. I would say it's a story about perspectives. So that is because sometimes someone's unluck, maybe someone else's luck, and vice versa. So, and this story came to my mind yesterday, because yesterday actually I received a phone call from a friend of mine because she felt extremely depressed. And after a very long hour on the phone, I just told her, but why don't you just try just once to look on the bright side of things? Why don't you do like Jida? Do you know Jida's story? Well, if you don't know it, just sit back and listen. So Jida was a young girl and she was very poor. She had nothing but herself. She lived in a small hut by the river and had suffered lots of misfortunes, but she never complained because indeed she was one of those persons who look on the bright side of things. And of course, she couldn't know that all her misfortunes were caused by an evil gene who had dogged her and wanted to destroy any happiness that she might have. One day, when she was walking down the road, a drop fell on her nose and it was sticky and it had a sweet smell. And so she looked up and she saw that in a tree that there was a beehive that had been abandoned by the bees. And so there was some honey dripping from the tree. And so she thought, if I gather the honey and sell it in the market, I will have enough to live. And so she ran home, came back with the pot, climbed up the tree, and filled all the honey in the pot. And when she had finished, she also tasted it. And it was warm and delicious. And for a moment, she also closed her eyes to fully enjoy its taste. But in that very moment, the evil gene sprang into action, and he transformed himself into a monkey that jumped in like a slap, stole the pot from her hand, threw it to the ground, and then jumped away, grinning. So Jada opened her eyes and she looked down and she could see that the pot was broken in thousand pieces and all the honey was sipping into the ground. Oh no, she said. But when she climbed on the tree, she could see that there were some hands that were taking the drops of honey on the back to carry them away to the nest. And so she smiled and said, well, something good might come out of this after all. And then she heard a sound. It was very far, so she couldn't really recognize what it was. So she looked very carefully, and she saw in the distance a black shining dot emerging from a cloud of dust and getting bigger and bigger as it came towards her. And when it was close enough, she could see that it was a knight on horseback, and he was wearing a black armor that shone under the sun. He was galloping as fast as the wind, and he was carrying a long lance in his hand. And when he had almost reached Jida, he hit by accident with the branch of the tree causing a rain of dark violet drops falling from that tree. But the knight didn't care about it, just rode on and disappeared in the depths of the forest. So Jada reached the tree, and she could see that it was a black mulberry tree, and all the fruits were now lying on the ground. But since there was a quite high grass underneath, most of the fruits were still intact. And so she thought, if I gather them in my apron and sell them in the market, I will have enough to live. And that's what she did. So she took her apron and very carefully she picked up and put each and every mulberry into her apron. But as soon as she finished, the evil gene again sprang into action. And this time he transformed himself into a nice donkey that came riding towards Jida. And when she saw it. So Jida said, "Oh, what a nice donkey." She stroked his nose, but then suddenly the donkey turned and with a kick it caused Jida's apron to overturn, and so all the mulberries fell to the ground, and the donkey also stepped over them before trotting away, grinning. And so Jada was flabbergasted. She looked at her apron, and there was not even one mulberry left. There were just the stains left by the mulberry juice. And so she said, "Oh no." But when she lowered her apron, she could see that near her feet there were again some hands that were taking the bits of rotten mulberries on the back. And so once again she smiled and said, "Well, something good might come out of this after all. You little ants will have plenty of food this year for winter." But Jada couldn't know that she had been observed by the queen of a very faraway kingdom, where they stopped to rest for a while in the forest, and had seen everything that happened with the honey and with the donkey. And so she got off a beautiful carriage, a carriage that was engraved in silver and gold, and she called Jida. "Please, little girl, come here." And when Jida was there, she asked her a story, and at the end, she said, "Oh, poor little girl, you've been so unlucky. But if you want, now I can help you. Please, come with me." And so Jida, they found a beautiful carriage, which inside was covered with red velvet. And she thought, "Oh, I've never seated on something so soft, but enjoying the feeling of the velvet on her skin." And after quite a long journey, the carriage started to slow down as they entered a very dry area where everything seemed thirsty. The people, the plants, the animals. And as if she could read Jaida's thoughts, the queen said, "You see, Jaida, this is my kingdom. It has not been rain for a very, very long time now, and the water is scarce. But we're hopeful that it will improve, so don't worry for you." Once they arrived at the capital of the kingdom, the queen gave to Jaida some money and a small wooden house overlooking the main street. And remembering the feeling of the velvet on her skin, Jaida decided to open a fabric shop where she sold every kind of fabric, from the simplest one to the most refined and beautiful one. And since she was good at selling, the business thrived. But unfortunately, the evil gene had followed her, and he was just waiting for the right moment to attack. And so one night, when all the city was asleep, and since he knew that Jaida kept all her properties, all her stock at the back of the house, he transformed himself into a flame, and he set fire to Jaida's house. And the fire spread so quickly that Jada just had time to run out and watch the house burn down. And at the end, everything was lost, and there was nothing but ash. And so Jada was really about to cry, but then she looked very carefully, and she saw that there were again some ants coming out from between the wreckage, carrying on their back some grains of corn. And so once again she smiled and said, "Well, something good might come out of this after all. You little ants are really lucky." But then she also noticed that there was a big flat stone that was blocking the ants' way. And so to help them, Jada was there, and she lifted the stone, and From under the stone came gushing water that flowed through the streets of the city and in the fields, eventually quenching the thirst of people, plants, and animals. And so all the people of the city gathered, and the queen came too and said, "Oh, Jaida, Jaida." It was said that one day a young girl would come who had suffered lots of misfortunes, but always kept good spirits and an open heart. And after a fire, she would find the source of the water of life. And so, Jaida, that girl is you, and so you are now the princess of the water of life. And so there was a big feast and there were celebrations that lasted for many days throughout the kingdom. And as far as I know, Jaida, he lived there, protected by that magic water from the evil jinn. And if you wonder how it ended up with my depressed friend, well, actually, after this story, she never called me again to complain. Now she calls my neighbor. And that's it.
Wonderful. Well, wow. I will stop complaining also when I'm when I'm having hard times, especially if I cross some ants taking away anything that drops. Well, actually, here I have two cats, so they come before the ants to find anything that drops from my hands. But wow, the origins of Water of Life and the guardian of that. Wow,
Yeah.
that's really something found wonderfully. So thank you, Stefania. And I
Thank
think I will call you for asking for advice if you have this kind of advice when someone is having
Okay,
an issue.
fine.
So thank you,
Thank
thank
you
you,
for listening.
and read the chat that you're having some beautiful words left for you
Thank
here.
you.
Okay, so well, from Italy and from the waters of life and from, well, lots of misfortune, but how that changed, we are jumping back to India. And in this case, we are going to listen to a story that comes from the Bhagavata Purana. And I hope I did not mispronounce that, so I apologize if that happened. And we're having the wonderful Vidya with us sharing this story. So Vidya, without much ado, I leave the stage or the spotlight to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Today's story is from the life of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna, when he lived at Dwarka, there was a man called Satrajit. This Satrajit had a big, beautiful, dazzling gemstone, which was called Shyamantaka. And this gemstone was a magic gemstone, which could give 12 measures of gold coins to whoever had the stone. And so Satrajit was getting richer day by day, and he became very arrogant. Lord Krishna one day went to him and told him that this gemstone could be kept with the king so that the wealth generated could be put to good public use. But Satrajit did not like this unsolicited advice of Krishna. After a few days, Satrajit's younger brother Prasenajit went to the forest on a hunting expedition wearing this stone as a pendant on his chain. And by the evening, all the members of the hunting party came back except Prasenajit. Satrajit was very worried, and the next day he took some people and went into the forest to search for his brother. They searched and searched and searched, and after a day or two, they found the bodies of Prasenajit and the horse which had carried him. But there was no sign of the gemstone or the chain. And they were in a tense mood and they brought back the bodies home and everything was over. And now Satrajit started suspecting Krishna of killing his brother. And he voiced his suspicion aloud, and that grew into a rumor, grew, and it reached the ears of Krishna himself. Krishna was deeply pained by these baseless allegations, and so he decided that he would somehow retrieve this gemstone from wherever it was in the jungle. And so he left with his group of people and they went to the same spot where Prasenajit's body had been found. But they examined the soil closely and they found a lot of blood stains and the pug marks of a lion. and they knew that a lion had killed Prasenajit, and so they followed those pug marks, hoping to see the lion. They saw the lion, but it was lying dead. It was a shock to them, and they went and examined that lion and found that it had been fighting with some clawed creature, a big creature it was, because the marks on the floor were so huge that Krishna and his friends had never seen such an animal in their lifetimes. And they were intrigued by this mysterious animal, and so they followed the steps of that animal. And after a distance, they reached a place where they saw a cave which looked very dense and very long, and an immense cave. It was well hidden under the foliage of trees. And Krishna did not want to endanger the lives of his people, and he told them, "You wait outside. I will go in and I will check." And so he went into the cave. The cave was pitch dark, and he had to hold the walls of the cave for support. And he slowly, stealthily crept into the cave, straining to see because it was so dark inside. And the cave also had lots of turns and twists inside. It was a long cave, and at one turning, he saw a bright light, and there the Samantaka gem was there. But then it was in the hands of a little baby bear, and the bear was playing with it up and down, up and down, up and down. It was kissing it, it was licking it, it was making funny noises, and it was clearly fascinated with that dazzling gem. And so Krishna decided that he would wait till the attention of the bear got diverted. And so he crouched at a corner and waited and waited. And after some time, the baby bear put the stone down, and it turned to another side and started playing with something else. Krishna lunged forward and put his hand on the gem, but the bear's instinct was much sharper. It turned around and gave a startled grunt. "Brr." And that grunt brought from inside a huge, monstrous bear coming with its claws and teeth. Ah! It came running out. It looked so huge, and it looked as old as time itself. And it was so infuriated at this human being having invaded his cave. But Krishna recognized the bear. The bear was actually the king of bears, Jambavan, who had helped Rama to fight Ravana. And Jambavan had the boon of immortality. And Krishna had been Rama in his earlier birth, and so he recognized Jambavan. But Jambavan did not recognize Krishna. He fought, he pounced on him, and he fought with him, and Krishna wanted to have some fun. He also fought with equal vigor. They threw stones at each other, they threw boulders at each other, they ran and ran around in the cave. They went outside of the cave on the other side. They uprooted trees and bashed up each other. They beat each other, and they were now fighting with their fists, with claws and hands. And after many days of fighting, Krishna decided it was enough, and he gave a thump on Jambavan's chest. And Jambavan fell down unconscious. And when he got up, he just looked up, and who did he see? It was not Krishna. It was Rama, with a bow and arrows and a blessing hand and a sweet smile. Jambavan was overwhelmed. "Rama, Rama, you have come here. You have come here. You have come to my abode," he said. And he clasped the feet of Krishna and he started crying in joy. Tears were flowing, and he was going on crying, and his tears washed the feet of Krishna. And after some time, he again looked up, and there was no Rama, but a smiling Krishna with a mischievous smile. Jambavan was shocked and confused. He got up, and then Krishna told him who he was and on what mission he had come. Jambavan was so happy. He made Krishna sit on a pedestal, and he showered flowers and coins and all the wealth he had. He brought the Shamantaka gem, and he told him how he had fought the lion and got this gem since it was so attractive. And he gave back the gem and all the gold coins which he had collected all these days, which the gem gave every day. And he bade Krishna a grand farewell, not wanting Krishna to go actually, but Krishna had to leave. And so Krishna left and came back to Dwarka. And he went to Satrajit and showed him the gem and all the gold and gave it back to him. And now Satrajit was feeling so ashamed. He felt so bad of having created that rumor without any basis, and he wanted to repent. He felt so remorseful, and he told Krishna to keep the gem himself. But Krishna said that he never wanted the gem for himself in the first instance. And he told him that he did not want it anymore. And Satrajit said that he had to offer him something. And so he said, I will offer you something which is dearer than this stone, which is dearer than even my own life. And that is my daughter, Satyabhama. And so he offered the hand of Satyabhama. Satyabhama was too happy to marry the beloved Krishna, and Krishna accepted Satyabhama. And this stone was returned back to Satrajit. And this is a story from Srimad Bhagavatam, which details the incidents in the life of Lord Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing this small part of a larger story that is about Krishna. You cannot stop having stories about him. So thank you a lot, Vidya, for that. And actually, when you were telling about the huge bear and the bear inside the bear, I got invaded by a bear. So I apologize if, I might have some sound around my microphone because I have this huge monster on my lap and I have lost all kind of space around me. So, but anyway, you inspired me because actually you scared me while you were telling that since he was jumping on me. But thank you for the inspiration and for the finding about the tearing down the rumors, which is something that so much gets us lost, and how much you can learn through stories on how to face or find out the truth, which is something also that we must look for. So thank you, Vidya, for
Thank you.
this. And now what we're going to do, besides having my cat purring on top of me and waking me down and making me lose sense of my legs, well, we will see what Roger Hankins, as he was telling me he was called, because I'm not sure he's Roger for Singapore. I'm not sure if you know him or you have ever seen him. He's a very novel storyteller in this screen, probably. I'm not sure. Anyway, he's bringing us a story about something that is also lost. And depending on how the story ends, I might ask you for advice, Roger, but I'm not going to say anything else about it. So please, Roger, take the screen and share with us.
Thank you, Annabelle. Well, my story, we've had a princess, but my story is about a queen. And one morning, Her Majesty said, my necklace, my beautiful, golden, gorgeous, red, ravishing ruby necklace is gone. I had it this morning, but where is it now? And the alarm was raised, and immediately an army of courtiers and chambermaids, of coachmen and cooks, of guards and gardeners, footmen and flunkies were dispatched to every single corner of the palace and the grounds, searching high and low to find the necklace. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, the royal chamberlain had to come to Her Majesty and give her the bad news that as yet they had not found the necklace. Well, one would never say that Her Majesty was dissatisfied, but it was clear to the royal chamberlain that she was far from being satisfied. And the next day they carried on searching, but with no success at all. And when the royal chamberlain came to her again, it was clear that although one would never describe Her Majesty as being disgruntled, you wouldn't say that she was gruntled either. And on the third day, their search again had no positive results, and the royal chamberlain had to come to Her Majesty and say, I am sorry to say, Your Majesty, that we must consider that your necklace has been stolen. Stolen? My glorious golden necklace stolen? Well, to say that Her Majesty was distraught might be overstating things, but she was certainly not traught. And she insisted that the following day she would make a proclamation. And sure enough, at lunchtime the very next day, everyone in the city was gathered in the square for Her Majesty to make this proclamation. She said, "Citizens, my golden glorious necklace with the ravishing rubies is lost." And there was a collective gasp. "Ah, I want it back. If," she said, "if you find it, or if you have it already in your possession, and you return it to me within 30 days, you will be most handsomely rewarded, and you will have the chinks to prove it. But, if you find the necklace, or if you have it on your person, and it is found upon your person after 30 days, then you will surely live to regret it, for there will be a capital punishment with a capital E." And again, there was another collective gasp. And Her Majesty went back to the palace. Well, the very next morning, there was a young woman. I wish I could tell you something about this young woman, but she was a very ordinary young woman, not too poor, not rich, not one who was finely dressed. I know very little about her. But she was out walking by the river that wound its way around the palace. And as she walked beside the river, and no doubt looking for something that she might scavenge, perhaps, to bring to the group of children that she would teach, she suddenly noticed, in the slanting rays of the morning sun, something sparkling in the sand beside the river bank. And she went, and of course, you are all storytellers, you will have guessed that she has found the necklace. She picked it up. It was indeed a beautiful necklace, and she had heard full well that proclamation the day before. And so, of course, you are thinking, yes, that she would go up from the river, she would cross that splendid wooden bridge right to the gates, and she would return it and claim her reward. No, because that would make it a very short story, and I would have to go straight back to Annabelle, and that's not going to happen. Instead, she took that necklace and she tucked it inside her blouse. For as you know, ladies in stories often have sort of something inside their blouse where they can keep these things that they find or which they need to keep secret. And she made her way back through the city to her small home. And then when she got there, she carefully closed the door, she bolted it and barred it, and then she went and she had a little secret, a cubbyhole or nook, where she took out that necklace. Oh, it was indeed a beautiful necklace. And she then carefully hid it away. And time passed. The days passed. The 27th day, the 28th, the 29th, and still no sign of the necklace. Her Majesty was getting more and more agitated. She would run her hands through her hair, and while one could say that she was not disheveled, one would never say that about Her Majesty, she was certainly not heveled. And on the 30th day, she asked the Chamberlain, "Well, has it been returned?" And he shook his head and said, "No, Your Majesty, it has not." And so the 31st day arrived, the day upon which anyone who was now found with that necklace would face capital punishment. And on that morning, the young woman, you've probably remembered there was a young woman in this story. She got up and she put on not her finest dress, because she didn't have a finest dress. She only had two. So I suppose I could say the finer dress. It was at least clean. And she then went, and from that cubbyhole, she took out the necklace. And oh my goodness, ladies, it was such a beautiful necklace indeed, absolutely exquisite. And she looked at herself for the first time in the mirror, And for the first time in her life, she not only looked like a princess, she felt like a princess. And ladies who are listening, surely this is the point when you share this story with your husbands or significant others, which I hope you will do, that the real message of this story is that any woman is made beautiful by a beautiful piece of jewelry. And only when your husband has acknowledged that fact should you then continue with this story. And so with this necklace around her neck, she then took a shawl and wrapped it about her. And she went out from her house and she made her way through the city until she came to the great wooden bridge, and she walked across that bridge and right up to the main door of the palace. And she said to the guard, "I wish to see the queen." And this being a simpler time of an old story time, it was very easy for her to get access without any kind of ID. And she was brought in to see Her Majesty and brought into a great antechamber. And the queen said, "You wish to see me? Why?" And the young woman curtsied and she said, "Your Majesty, I think I have something which belongs to you." And she unwrapped the shawl, revealing the necklace. And for the first time in 31 days, Her Majesty smiled. "Oh, yes, yes, yes," she said. "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, yes, oh, thank you, she said. "Where did you find it? Where did you find it?" And the young woman explained how she had found it in the riverbank by the sand beside the bridge. "Oh, yes, oh, silly, 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 silly me," said Her Majesty. "Yes, I forgot. I went out for a ride, didn't I? Yes, and on the way back, I happened to see there was a man fishing in the river, and I suddenly had a craving for a steamed fish for my lunch. So I dismounted and I leant over the parapet, and it must have fallen off and landed in the sand. When did you find it? Was it this morning?" And the woman said, "No, Your Majesty. I found it the morning after your proclamation." "Huh?" said Her Majesty. "The morning after my proclamation? Were you not paying attention?" Oh, yes, I did, Your Majesty. "Did you not hear me say that if you returned it within 30 days, I would reward you very handsomely?" "Yes, I did, Your Majesty." And did you not hear that I said if it was found in your possession after 30 days, that you would face the most serious consequences, even a capital punishment?" And the young woman said, "Yes, I did, Your Majesty." "Well then," said the Queen, "are you crazy? Why didn't you return it? Why have you waited until today?" And the young woman said, "Your Majesty, I didn't return it before 30 days because I didn't want you to think that I was returning it to you because I was wanting a reward." "Oh," said Her Majesty. "And I waited until the 30 days had passed because I didn't want you to think that I was returning it to you because I was afraid of being punished. You see, the reason I'm returning to you now is because this necklace belongs to you. And when you find something which doesn't belong to you, then it is only right and proper that you return it to the person to whom it belongs. And all thoughts of reward or punishment have nothing to do with it." And Her Majesty smiled for the second time that day. And she very graciously thanked the young woman and said that while she could not reward her, she would certainly not be punishing her. "However," she said, "I have found something, not only this necklace which was lost, but I have found something far more valuable, someone with wisdom who I would like to live here with me and be my advisor in the palace." And so it was.
Bravo, Roger. Bravo. It's wonderful to see you change hats from host to storyteller. So,
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Oh, not at all. It was a pleasure. And actually, I'm not sure if you will repent of having me here. But anyway, I think this queen, I felt identified with her because something that I get lost a lot, is like, where are my glasses? And this is a common question that I do at the office. So I would feel very identified with, the extreme reaction. Although no one would enjoy the same my glasses as that beautiful necklace, which
it's true.
if we ever meet face to face, I will borrow that from you.
Oh yes. This. I wish I could say this was mine, but the people are coming from Buckingham Palace to take it back. Just a minute. Yes, they're right here at the door. Okay, I'm coming. Yeah.
Okay, so I can hear the noise and sirens behind you. So yeah, just let us know that you're fine and that jail treats you fine or anything. Just in case, I'm just saying, nothing to say here. So thank you again, Roger. And to end this wonderful World Storytelling Day swap, we are going to invite again from India, Pratigya. I'm sorry, I messed up your name. So Pratigya. Now, properly, Haran. And she will bring us a story linked to a grandma. And what better person to find things or to lose sometimes things to than a grandmother. But I'm not going to say anything else. So Pratigya, thank you again for being with us.
Thank you, Annabelle. Oh. Hello, Granny Small. We've got you some chocolate cake. Mommy called out as she entered the blueberry house. Blueberry House had 12 grandmas and grandpas. 11 of them were quite happy, but for one. Granny Small was so tiny, literally this tiny. She sat in that pink blue armchair, and it looked as if the armchair was just going to gobble her up. She was so tiny. Jack, in fact, did not even notice her when he entered the place. He took out something from the big red bag and he said, Granny Small, look. I've got you a drawing. This is my friends and me playing frisbee. Granny Small tried to smile, but her smile wibbled and wobbled and disappeared. Oh, she said. Now, Jack was quite worried. Granny Small looked smaller and tinier every time he met. Why is that so? Granny Small, look, this is my friends and me having fun, he said. Oh, how wonderful. How I wish what, Granny? How I wish I could have some adventure. Adventure? Jack had always seen his granny tiny, small, old, sitting in that armchair inside the blueberry house. He could never imagine her having any kind of adventure, and he was eager, he was curious. What kind of adventure, Granny? Oh, all sorts, said Granny with a smile on her face and a faraway look in her eyes. When I was your age, I would climb up trees. I would build shafts and rafts, and I would swim down the streams. Oh, I was quite a fun kind, she said. Jack just couldn't believe it. Granny Small, fun, adventure. How is that even possible? That's when Mummy jumped in. Okay, Jack, we need to get going now. We don't want Granny getting tired speaking to us so much. Jack didn't want to go, but he didn't have a choice. So he just went back with his mum. They both sat in the car and Mummy remembered, Jack, I think I forgot the red bag. Can you just go pick it up? It must be in Granny Small's room. He quickly jumped back and what? Granny Small was even smaller than what she was 5 minutes ago. Suddenly, he had a thought. What if I come back next week to meet her and poof, she's disappeared completely. She would be gone even before she's had any adventure. No. Granny Small, would you like to have an adventure? Adventure? There was a twinkle in her eyes. Oh, I would love that. He quickly scooped her up in his hand and dropped her in the red big bag. And off he went to the car. He left it in the back seat and there would be small little giggles. Oh, Jack didn't know what to do, and so he laughed. What is it, Jack? You seem to be in a funny mood today. I just thought of a joke. How do you make an elephant climb up a tree? Mummy said, I don't know. You hide it in an acorn and wait for a friendly squirrel to take it up. It was not a joke, but he was forced to laugh, and he was laughing and giggling for no reason all through the way back home because the back seat was giggling constantly. As soon as they reached home, before Mummy could tell him anything, he took that bag and rushed upstairs to his room. He emptied that bag and out tumbled Granny Small. She looked around his room. Oh, I like, oh, spaceship. Are we going on a space adventure? Oh, Granny Small was excited and he just stopped her right there. Jack said, no, 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 Granny. I was hoping I'll teach you how to play frisbee. Ah, frisbee. They were not around when I was young. How do you play them? Jack tried to explain it to her. You hold it tightly, you count 3 to 1, and you push it as fast as you can, as forcefully as you can. No matter how hard Granny Small tried, it just hit the walls of the room and came and sat right at her feet. Never mind, Granny, I'll show you how to do it. He went up to the windowsill. He got Granny Small to hold it really tightly, and he said, hold it really tight, Granny, and look. 3, 2, 1, woof! He threw it. The frisbee went flying outside his window, and along with it went Granny Small holding on to it. Adventure! Oh, we want it! Oh, this is fun! Jack looked there, worried outside the window as he saw the frisbee go round and round and land on top of the highest tree in his garden. He rushed downstairs, went out. Granny Small, stay right there. I'll come and help you out. Oh, I'm not going anywhere. I can see for miles away. I'm loving the breeze in my hair. Oh, this is the best adventure ever. Surely Jack did not think that. He looked all around. How do I get her down? He knew he should tell Mummy to pull the ladder out of the shed, but how could he tell her he smuggled her out and put her on top of a tree? No, he couldn't do that. He looked all around once again. He even went over to the next door neighbors in their garden, but he only found one dog there, Buster, sleeping there happily, basking in the sun. What do I do? What do I do? He went back to the tree, and that's when he heard Granny Small call out, hey, here I come. Granny Small had taken a few leaves, the string from her cardigan, tied it around and used it as a makeshift parachute, and she was having a lovely ride, and Jack was jumping around this way, that way. He had cupped his hands trying to hold her, catch her. As soon as she comes down, that's when the wind blew, and it took the parachute and Granny Small along with it. It went over and over and over onto the next door neighbor's garden, and plop, she landed right on top of Buster. The dog yelped up, and it jumped here and it went there, and it crashed into the flower pots, and all the time Granny Small was holding on tight, giddy up, 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 enjoying the ride. Oh, of course, Jack was worried. What do I do? How do I get her out of there? Suddenly, the dog just stopped. Exactly how dogs do it. And it shook really hard, and went Granny Small once again. This time, the wind took her higher and higher and higher, right on top of the next door neighbor's roof. Granny Small, just stay there. I'll find a way to get you back. Oh, no. This is the best adventure ever. Once again, there's a wind in my hair. I can see for miles away. I've been waiting for this for so long. This is fun, my boy. But Granny, it's not safe. Who's bothered about safe? I'm having fun. That's all that matters. Oh, don't worry, Jack. I know what I'll do. I'll take the cardigan and tie it around the chimney, and carefully I will walk across the roof. Both the roofs were connected, and once I'm over to our roof, we can find a way of getting me down. Okay, Granny, please be very, very careful. Yeah, I will be. Don't worry, you silly one. And as she walked, suddenly she tripped, and that string of the cardigan was not holding up. Her cardigan was going smaller and smaller and smaller, and she was tumbling and tumbling and tumbling, and Jack did not know what to do. This is getting just in the nick of the minute, he found the wheelie bin, he dragged it up and plop, opened the lid. Thankfully, Mummy had just mowed the lawn yesterday, so it was filled with grass, and plop, Granny Small landed right inside the wheelie bin. The bin toppled over, and off she came out. Out, and that's when Mummy came out. What is all this noise? What ruckus are you creating around? Jack? Oh, that was a clever idea, Jack. Very clever of you to get inside the bin. Jack, did you put Granny Small inside the bin? Jack did not know what to say. He looked at his mummy, looked at his granny. He just put his head down, the way the kids always do very cleverly when they need to. Mummy did not know what was happening, and she said, Granny Small, how did you manage to get here? Oh, who knows? Maybe I had a parachute, maybe I flew, maybe I was having a ride. Oh, that doesn't matter. I'm here and I'm really happy. Why don't we have a little picnic? Do you still have some chocolate cake? Mummy was actually happy to escape from there because she had no clue what was happening. She rushed inside to get some cake. And that's when Granny Small said, so Jack, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it? Is there a stream somewhere around? Next time, I'll show you how to build boats and we'll go on yet another adventure. And that was my story.
Oh my goodness. You told the story of Granny Small, or did you tell the story of how Jack lost all his hair due to stress? Because that happened every time my grandfather climbed onto a bicycle, and we were all running behind him. But the sense of found, the sense of found. So wonderful listening to your story, Pratigya. And I think it's a wonderful ending to this World Storytelling Day story swap, in which we have been sharing stories of found and lost, or lost and found. And well, one of the things that we can find is the joy in living to the utmost and to the fullest. I hope we can see you in the next feast activities. So please be connected and celebrate, and please find what is lost, because anything that is lost can be found, or we can find something else, as everyone today has been able to share. So thank you for all the brilliant tellers. Thank you for, standing up with my lost in translation moment sometimes, or my bubble changing into Spanish to English, but I think it was understandable, everything. So that's cool. So this is a big heart for every one of you. And I think with this, we are finishing the recording and closing the meeting. And I think after the recording, if anyone wants to stay and say hi, hugs, virtual hugs, of course, we can still do that. So thank you, everyone. And thank you for my co-hosts that have been taking behind in all these jumps from people to people. So thanks again, and enjoy your week and these stories.